Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam, and you are watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies, and today we're going to be talking about all the best movies and shows Netflix is adding in September 2021. So if you're new here, welcome. If you like movie recommendations, I would encourage you to click that subscribe button and the little bell icon. That way you get notified when new videos get released so you never run out of good movies to watch. And if you're new here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a little bit of time talking about everything of interest Netflix is adding in the month of September 2021. We're gonna start off with things they're adding on the 1st, which is where they dump a lot of the familiar favorites. Then we'll go through the rest of the month where I'll tell you everything I know about some of the most interesting projects coming to Netflix in September, including a rated R action movie called Kate with Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Woody Harrelson, and a new horror series created by Mike Flanagan, the creator of The Haunting of Hill House. So there's some good stuff coming this month, but on the 1st they add Marshall. In this movie, Chadwick Boseman actually plays Thurgood Marshall, the first black Supreme Court Justice, which does look like one of the better picks out of everything getting added on the 1st. They're also adding Level 16, a sci-fi thriller from 2018 that's actually set in an all-girls academy where two girls begin to realize they're being trained for something. I have not seen it, but it's got decent reviews and it looks really cool. Also on September 1st, they're adding quite a few picks for action fans, starting with Chappie. This is from director Neil Blomkamp, who's most famous for District 9, and while Chappie was not well received, I do think this is an underrated movie. It's got some wild, over-the-top violence in it, but also a very interesting story, even if it's basically a remake of Short Circuit from the 80s. Some of you remember that movie from the 80s, right? Cliffhanger from 1993 is getting added. This is a fun, wild action movie and actually still holds a spot in the Guinness Book of World Records for the costliest aerial stunt ever done. It does have its flaws, wonky acting at times, some far-fetched things, but it did get nominated for multiple Academy Awards, all in the technical realms, and it lost all of them to Jurassic Park that year, but still, a fairly technically proficient movie and a decent action movie from the early 90s. And Tears of the Sun, easily, far and away, the best Bruce Willis movie currently included with Netflix. All the other Bruce Willis movies on Netflix right now are total shit shows, and he knows it. And for some classics, they're also adding Do the Right Thing. This is one of Spike Lee's first movies. It's over 30 years old, and it's still widely considered to be one of his best. This is a must-watch for movie buffs. They're also adding Labyrinth. I can't imagine there's too many people watching this video not familiar with this movie, but it has been a while since I've seen this available on Netflix. Mars Attacks from Tim Burton is a total classic. Even if I didn't really get it when I was younger, back when this came out, I do appreciate it today. I do think it takes quite a bit of exposure to drive-in style monster movies, old ones, in order to really enjoy Mars Attacks, but still just a funny movie that has a completely packed cast. And if that didn't have enough laughs in it, they're also adding School of Rock with Jack Black. And then finally on the 1st, they're adding Agatha Christie's Crooked House, which looks interesting. This has got an all-star cast. I've never heard of it. It's got high ratings. Does not look like the type of thing I would normally hunt down and search for, but being included on the 1st, it definitely looks like a decent Netflix watch. Now, before talking about everything else that Netflix is adding and taking away in the month of September, I want to talk about today's sponsor, Honey. My viewers can get Honey free today when they follow the link in the description or the link displayed right here on your screen. That's right, this is completely free, and not only that, it's beyond free because it's gonna help you save money. It's an online shopping tool that, again, is free, super easy to set up, and there will be a little button in the top of your browser, and Honey is automatically gonna scour the web for relevant coupons to something you're already purchasing. When there is a coupon available for you, Honey finds discounts around 18% on average, and they have over 100,000 5-star reviews on Google already. Again, it's completely free, and I know for a fact my audience loves free. So not only is this gonna save you money on things you're already purchasing, but supporting our channel's sponsors is another great way of supporting the channel itself. Again, this could not be easier. Go to this link, follow it in the description, or the top pinned comment below this video, which also features all the titles of the movies and shows we're discussing in this video, by the way. So you need to go down there and check out that list anyway. You might as well click the link, set up Honey and start saving money, again, on stuff you're gonna be buying anyway. Thanks to Honey for sponsoring the channel. They could have chose from a lot of YouTubers, and they chose this channel, so I really do appreciate that. But let's go ahead and move on with the rest of everything coming to Netflix this month. On September 3rd, they're adding Money Heist Season 5 Part 1. Part 2 will come later on in another few weeks or months. But this has been a total hit series. It is Spanish language, but it is dubbed. Really cool heist stuff to start. If you haven't caught up on this series yet, Season 1 is excellent, and it will be a fun ride to catch up to Season 5. They're also adding Worth, which stars Michael Keaton and Stanley Tucci. This movie is the true story of a lawyer who is seeking justice for the victims of 9/11. Looks like high drama stuff. Looks like one of the better things Netflix is adding this month. You can tell they're pretty proud of it. And I cannot recall ever seeing a movie with Michael Keaton in it that I didn't like. There's gotta be at least one, but I cannot think of it. On the 7th, they add If I Leave Here Tomorrow, which is an authorized, which is an important word here, documentary of Lynyrd Skynyrd. So not only is this one of the most famous rock bands of all time, they have a really wild story, including plane crashes and all sorts of stuff, and they're very protective of their story. So there's some unauthorized things. This is one of the authorized pieces. Obviously, fans of Lynyrd Skynyrd, this will be a must-see for you, but just fans of rock documentaries, this is gonna be a good one. Also on the 7th, they're adding Kid Cosmic Season 2. Some of you know I've got a 5-year-old boy. He loves this show, and I love the style of it. It's got a really cool retro style. It's a fun, wacky show for kids, but the style of it keeps me engaged throughout. On the 8th, they're adding The Circle Season 3. Pretty typical reality show stuff. It's not really an endorsement from me, but if you've been watching it, Season 3 drops soon. Documentary-wise, they're also adding Blood Brothers, Malcolm X, and Muhammad Ali. This is a Netflix original, and supposedly it features quite a bit of rare, never-before-seen, publicly archival footage, so that should be interesting. And then on the 10th, they add Lucifer Season 6. This is the final season of that series. One of the cool things is this is one of those shows that Netflix picked up from Fox. It had a big following, but not enough to sustain it on Fox. I personally do not watch the show, but I love that Netflix is able to resurrect some of these hit shows that people love. It would be nice if they didn't cancel so many of the shows that they're creating that people seem to love. But if you've been watching Lucifer, the season finale is coming this month, so get ready for that. And then one of the big budget action movies they're adding this month that is a Netflix original is Kate.
They're gonna know I was here. Who? Everyone.
This stars Mary Elizabeth Winstead as sort of the lead ass kicker, and then Woody Harrelson. This looks like cool, bloody fun. It actually looks like the type of movie that I would enjoy even if it's not very good, but it also looks like the type of movie I will likely be reviewing here on the channel later in the month. Prey is a thriller about a hiking trip that turns into a nightmare when a group of campers suddenly begin to be hunted by a mysterious shooter. Again, sounds like my type of thing, even if it's not going to be that good. So thriller fans, keep your eyes peeled for that one. And then for the family, they're adding Fire Drake, the Silver Dragon. This is from Germany. Obviously, it's going to be dubbed for English audiences. I've seen several of the animated movies on Netflix that hail from Germany, and they're different from some of the other things, but I do like them. They're interesting and clever, and their fantasy stuff feels a little different than it does from things coming from other countries, and it does not feel like a foreign movie. Again, this is animated, so the dubbing is not something you're necessarily going to notice. Typically, they will reanimate the mouths to match the English dubbing because all animated movies are technically dubbed anyway. Also for the family, on the 14th, they're adding You vs. Wild Out Cold. This is what Bear Grylls is doing now. I've always been a fan of Bear Grylls. Now I like that there's stuff I can watch with my son. Bear Grylls is going on his typical adventures. It's a little less perilous than his old show because it is family friendly, but you get to choose what he does. You typically have 2 options every minute or so. It's a fun experience that's a little different from just putting something on and watching it. Plus you also get to kind of go on an adventure with Bear Grylls with your kids, which is always fun. The 14th also brings the final season of Jack Whitehall's Travels with My Father. In this season, they'll be traveling around the UK. If you've been a fan of the show, this is it. You're not going to get any more after this season, and if you haven't, you've got 4 other seasons you could catch up on before this drops on the 14th. On the 15th, they add Nightbooks, another thing that they look proud of. This is a supernatural, sort of a thriller thing, but again, it is family friendly. And this actually stars Kristen Ritter, who's the star of Jessica Jones. I like her. She's charismatic. She's got a great script. screen presence, and the production value on this movie looks good. So if it's not going to be too scary for my kids, I'll likely be watching it with them. And they're also adding Saved by the Bell, the original series, seasons 1 through 9. On the 16th, they add Safe House, which I think is an incredibly underrated thriller starring Denzel Washington and Ryan Reynolds. I can kind of see where this movie doesn't quite hit home the way you want it to, but speaking of hitting, this is a brutal movie. When Denzel Washington punches people in this movie, you hear it and you feel it. A lot of the brawls in this movie are down and dirty, grungy. This movie is really cool, even if it did lose me a little bit story-wise, and I do mean just a little bit, it's still cool stuff, and again, one of the more underrated things Denzel has been in the last 10 years or so. Stronghold is a French cop drama about a group of police officers that are trying to bust a major drug network. It looks dark and gritty. This is from France, and I have seen some other cop dramas from France, and they are dark and gritty, so I'm looking forward to checking this one out. And then just in time for the tail end of summer, they're adding all 4 Jaws movies. And I do kind of recommend all 4. The first obviously being the best, the second being a pretty good follow-up, the third being this really bonkers thing that takes place in like this SeaWorld type place. It's weird, wonky stuff that does not mesh well with the originals at all, but I still think it's kind of worth watching just because of how bonkers it is. And then finally, Jaws 4: The Revenge is widely regarded as one of the worst movies ever made. I agree with that sentiment, but it is uniquely watchable. It is that bad. So if bad movies are your thing, I can tell you with confidence that Jaws 4 is well worth watching if you're in the mood for something really terrible. And then on the 14th, they add My Little Pony: A New Generation, which is a computer animated My Little Pony movie. Doesn't sound like my cup of tea, but I do have a 3.5-year-old girl, so there's a very good chance my eyeballs will be watching this one during the month of September. And then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, there is a new horror series from Mike Flanagan, who is the creator of The Haunting of Hill House and a handful of really great horror movies. It's called Midnight Mass. This is actually about the arrival of a priest investigating mysterious events on a small, isolated island. Definitely sounds like my kind of thing, maybe even more so than The Haunting of Hill House. I'll be checking it out. September 29th brings The Chestnut Man. This is actually a Danish language series that may be dubbed, but it is about a serial killer called the Chestnut Man. It looks dark and brooding, my kind of thing. I'll be checking it out to at least see if it translates well and is gonna work well for American audiences. And then finally on the 29th, they add another horror movie. Keep in mind, we're only gonna be a few weeks out from Halloween at this point. It's called No One Gets Out Alive. This looks kind of like your classic haunted house type stuff. Looks a little bit by the book, but if you start to get an itch to watch a new horror movie, this could be a good watch leading up to Halloween. We will have to wait and see, but those are my recommendations for everything that Netflix is going to be adding during the month of September. Here is everything leaving during the month of September. Now, if you're new here, you can pause the screen at any time and write them down or do a screenshot, but the date listed is the date that it is gone, which means you can no longer watch it when that date hits the calendar. But because they're taking away so much this month, I went ahead and put my top picks out of everything leaving in bright yellow. That way they stand out. Most of the ones highlighted here have been featured on previous videos. On that note, if you don't have enough recommendations after watching this video, I've got recently released videos with recommendations on Prime Video, Hulu, HBO Max, YouTube. There's free movies on YouTube and a bunch more. So go check out some recent uploads for additional movie recommendations and help me thank the Patreon supporters. I could not do this show without these guys. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter and maybe seeing your name here, there is a link in the video description. There's also a link down there to Honey. Again, thanks to Honey for sponsoring this video, but I will keep making videos like these as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this episode, and you will see me on the next one.